Okay.
good. Thank you so
Don't
much for your
ask any
patience.
questions. Hey, thank you for yours. And thank you to the 4 people that were so insistent.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Very nice to
Well,
meet you. Thank you very much for having me here today. What a wonderful idea in this hard time to bring these kind of vibrations out. Thank you.
okay, thank you. It's thank you for joining, and it's a big pleasure for myself to have you here. Well, I would love to start by hearing about you and your experience with conducted improvisation.
Okay. Well, I first started conducting when I was in high school. I was the conductor of the choir. I was the student conductor of the choir.
Mhm,
And I learned about conducting, and I studied some conducting in college, but I knew nothing about conducted improvisation.
mhm.
And I discovered conducted improvisation when I started playing with the Burnt Sugar Orchestra.
Oh,
And with the Burnt Sugar Orchestra, I play drums.
mhm.
And Burnt Sugar Orchestra is known as the band that never plays the same thing once.
Okay.
And it is directed by Greg Tate.
Mhm,
And oftentimes we have guest conductors. Vernon Reed, the guitarist from Living Colour, has conducted us. And oftentimes now when we do shows, Greg will assign songs to individual members, and we'll have the opportunity to conduct the ensemble. Um, and by playing with Burnt Sugar, I learned Burnt Sugar actually is direct lineage to Butch Morris,
mhm.
which I just pulled this old thing out too. So
Yeah.
there you go. We played the Santa Ana Resi Jazz Festival in Sardinia,
Mhm.
and Butch is still an everlasting figure there, and I got this shirt there. So
Awesome.
I had the opportunity to experience conducted improvisation, some of it with no song form,
Mhm.
and then some of it over established song forms. So um, sometimes Burnt Sugar has played the James Brown songbook, the David Bowie soundbook, the Prince soundbook. I'm not even going to remember them all, but basically people like to book songbooks. And there can be like 18 people in the band. So um, we play a lot of these kind of wonderful large shows in New York and internationally at festivals. And so I really learned the power of conducted improvisation through Burnt Sugar, and Burnt Sugar awoke in me a real passion to understand Butch Morris's take on
Mhm.
conducted improvisation. And the thing about Butch is I did not know him, but basically everyone I know knew him, and or played in some ensemble of his on the Lower East Side. Um, but the thing about Butch is that there's such amazing footage of him online that I've studied, and there's books and interviews, and I was just so enthralled by this language, and even started developing my own. And so I heard you playing music from my orchestra in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia,
Uh-huh.
and conducted improvisation really plays a big role in my music there. And
Hmm.
some of my music is through composed with elements of improvisation. I find that when I work with young people, conducted improvisation is a wonderful way to give them agency, and they can learn how to express themselves because they have permission to explore. And uh, and in Russia, in Siberia in particular, conducted improvisation really gave me a way to unlock my students in my
Hmm.
orchestra because they were in a music college. And um, most conservatories, and then there's the Russian classical tradition. You see my hand. right? So there's this kind of thing, and there's right and there's wrong, you know. And then I came in with the, what's wrong with that? What's right with that? And just started throwing things off. So it's been a journey, and I've really I'm really grateful for the language. And then over time, if I work with the same group over and over, we develop our own, you know, symbols. Some of them are Butch's, some of them are mine. Some of them a
Okay.
student will make up, you know. So that's
Hmm.
sort of my history with it.
So do you have your own group where you do your conducted improvisation?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So and in this group, you were mentioning that you use sometimes Butch Morris's gestures, and sometimes you have developed your own gestures. I would love
Yes.
to hear about how did you develop your your own way of doing that, and your perspective about this. Could you share a little bit?
Sure. Well, in places where um, when I'm in international places, there's a language barrier when it comes to the spoken language. You know, I don't speak much Spanish. I've done this work in Guatemala. I see Ambassador Robinson is joining us, fantastic former ambassador of Guatemala, and U.S. ambassador to Guatemala, and a wonderful supporter of jazz music and creativity and improvisation. Um, and in Russia, I speak more Russian than I let on, but um, I find that a lot of times people who don't feel that they speak English have a fear of not understanding. So they have a thought that's between the listening. So going into gestures is actually a very natural way of communicating when you're communicating cross-culturally, you know. So that's how I started developing certain things. One time I was telling my students in a workshop in Siberia that I was leading them through some ideas. I wanted them to play the feeling just before, if this is the horizon,
Okay.
at sunrise, just before the sun goes, like that feeling, right? And
Uh-huh.
when I did that, my students started laughing, you know. And then from there, I could be in a show and I want to invoke that feeling. So
Mhm.
that language was established from that moment. So I could just go,
Uh-huh.
and then they know exactly, if they don't laugh, they know what to play.
I love the gesture. It's great. It's great. It's very funny indeed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then also another one that I made up, which is, it's American, African American vernacular, you know, flip the script, flip the
Hmm.
script. And what I do is when we go on these adventures and I encourage them to play their instrument differently, you know, maybe move the bow so that they get harmonics, you
Hmm.
know, maybe play below the bridge, you know, like or play up by the tuning pegs,
Hmm.
or do different things to get a different sound.
Hmm.
So this is one, you know, flip the script. So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that that came from me, not Butch. I've never seen anybody else do it, but Butch had hundreds. I think he made them up on the spot too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that it is interesting is that in every language, every practice I know of conducted improvisation, there is one gesture for extended techniques, and that's very interesting because in each practice there's a different gesture to say the same thing, which is extended techniques, and well, I would like to keep geeking a bit about gestures, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
and because I've seen some of your videos on YouTube, the one that you are doing some, you are conducting score, and also some ones that you are conducting improvisations. And I perceive that sometimes you use free gestures without meaning. I mean, because you were saying about, you know, the power of gestures when you are dealing with people who doesn't speak the same language. How do you feel about, you know, the difference between metaphors, between, you know, directives with you know, a meaning like this one or like this one, or, you know, just throwing your arm in the air and, you know, letting people to interpret what you are, you know, gesticulating. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I get really lost in the moment because I'm so engaged in the sounds coming towards me, and I feel like I play a lot of instruments, but my favorite instrument to play is the orchestra, you know,
Okay.
or a large ensemble. You know, it's such an amazing thing to shape. And part of what I like to shape is dynamics. I actually really like to contrast louds and softs. And I find that that happens naturally in my physical movement or how high my hands are. And I get lost. I've seen video where I was kind of dancing, you
Uh-huh.
know, and there 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 was um, there was a there was a performance that I did at a festival in Siberia where I had them repeating on a vamp,
Okay.
and I had a cue for them to stop, and I had a cue for them to start, but the cue wasn't in time, and so the cue would stop, and I would freeze, and then I would love to let this pregnant pause, and I used to test my group because sometimes they would get used to like you know, because it was kind of a funk vamp, the
Mhm.
4/4 feel. So they would think I was going to rest for like 1 bar or 2 bars, you know, because we feel, once you play music, we do feel things in fours and eights. If you are, yeah, basically a lot of people, not the whole world, but you know, a lot of, I mean, I'm from the jazz, you know, I'm trained as a jazz musician. So there's fours, eights, 16s, you know, and that's the American, you know, 2 and 4. That's our clave, you know. So,
Mhm.
but don't get me started on rhythm. We'll get off topic. Uh, so yeah, so I do use the physicality. And after, especially my group in Siberia,
Mhm.
after I've worked with them for so long, they can read me. You know, they can really read me. And
Mhm.
I lo they've really gotten great about staying focused, you know. I love burnt sugar. The funny thing about burnt sugar, when you conduct burnt sugar, and I've never talked to Greg Tate about this, um, basically everyone in burnt sugar is like cooler than anybody, right? And so everyone on the band has sunglasses on. And there's an interesting dynamic of trying to conduct someone if you don't see that you have
Right.
their eye contact, you know, and
Hmm.
you know, but that's also just part of the process. You know, it's like I might intend for something to happen and it doesn't happen, and I have to pivot in the moment and accept that that's what happened in the music, and then continue to craft and or let the music flow. Just go, you know, I'm not going to fight it and be like, no, I need you to play this. That's not my style, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, be like, all
Yeah.
right, that's where it's going,
Hmm. I
you
like the
know.
way you think. Yeah, sure. And well, it makes me think. It makes me wonder if have you ever got frustrated on stage? You know, something that you felt that, oh, that's wrong. That's can't this can't happen.
um I think I've had like moments in the back of my head, but I feel like for me personally, this is just me. I'm not saying across the board. I feel like my role as conductor is to inspire confidence. And I don't want, and especially to be honest, you know, the European classical tradition, some of the teachers in the conservatories have a very iron fist way of being so absolute about right and wrong with their students that I remember at some point the students made a mistake and they cowered back waiting for me. So they're already a little abused. So I don't want to feed into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try to bring like a different vibration, you know, and so I find that to be really effective. And generally I'm a guest, you know, so I don't, you know, you don't go into someone's house and be like, I'm Rick James, you know, like, you know, it's like, So, hey, I see Jacobo. Jacobo from Guatemala. Malacates in the house.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your role as a conductor is you know to I didn't remember which word you used, but I would like to know more about, you know, how do you feel yourself as a conductor? How do you put yourself into the stage, and how do you deal with you know the people who you are conducting, and also the public? How do you deal with all this environment?
I mean, well, it's like I have two minds. I'm always connected to the orchestra in a very symbiotic way, you know, always connected to the orchestra. I think it's Eckhart Tolle that says, um, you are the dance and life is the dancer, you know, and to me that means that like I'm the being and everything else is the doing, or I'm the vibration and then everything else is the direction.
Okay.
You know, so I feel like for me, my vibration and what I bring really energetically kind of is felt and dictates the music as well. You know, and it doesn't mean I'm smiling and trying to be everyone's friend. You know, it's really a focus. It's a focus. And you know, culturally I'm African American, and so the African American culture definitely has call and response embedded within it. So I don't mind audience participation in certain places if we hit a groove and there's like a call and response, either hey, da da da, hey, or clapping, you know, and at which point I will turn to the audience and invite them. And sometimes I conduct the audience, which
Okay.
is really cool to get them, like if they're applauding, and then as the applause for the piece is waning, I'll start to throw them a cue and they'll start to get it, and then I'll get them in a rhythm, and then I can turn back and start conducting the orchestra over the rhythm of the audience. And then everything is the dancer, you know.
Yeah, sounds cool. And talking about rhythm, you mentioned that if we start talking about rhythm, maybe we can diverge. But I would love to know how, you know, how you being a drummer and how the rhythm influenced your way of conducting. If you bring this perception to your conductions or not.
Sure. I mean, my first instrument was the piano.
Okay.
But the instrument, I write on the piano, and I play a bunch of stuff, banjo, ethno ethno kind of instruments, kalimbas, vargan, banjo, bass guitar, synthesizers, analog, modular, all of that. But I would say that, my mother was a choreographer of African dance and modern. So I grew up in dance studios. Hi, Leah. And I think that in the dance studios, I was very aware of the connection between the dancer and the drum. So that has a real effect on my approach to rhythm, because I'm thinking of everything physicalized. Banjo, baby. The other thing is, I think drumming has a real influence on my sense of phrasing. 4, 8, 16 across the bar line, something, there's all these options. I also think that in the jazz ensemble, especially like my favorite kind of jazz ensembles are trios and quartets. I like a small group where there's a lot of freedom. I think that the drummer definitely conducts. There's a lot of conducting in terms of dynamics, cues, pickups, setting up hits. These are also all these different ways that I look into a composition as a drummer are also ways that I think when I'm conducting and playing banjo. I see the banjo. Somebody wrote that. Todd, Mr. Todd.
Nice thoughts. Yeah, great thoughts. I love the way you put the drummer as a conductor in jazz trios and quartets.
Well, I mean, people who aren't drummers in these kind of settings, like band leaders, they might not agree with me, but my drumming mentor was Greg Bandy, who played with a ton of people, Pharaoh, Betty Carter. Back in the day, he toured with Gary Bartz forever. He just plays with so many people. He's known as the mayor of Harlem. He just told me the drummer is the driver of the bus. The bass player won't agree, but I'm driving the bus. Maybe the trumpet player might want to think that they're driving the bus, but I'm driving the bus. That's what I was taught. So
yeah, you sure do. Nice. Well, you have quickly mentioned about your experience with burnt sugar and about Greg Tate conducting, and I was wondering if you could share a bit more about this experience and about the way you participate on that, about Greg Tate's conducting style, and well, anything you want to share about this. I would love to hear more about your experience in this ensemble.
it's interesting because it feels like what I like about Greg is he's very willing to go into thank you, Sim Todd. He said I'm driving the bus.
Yeah, you sure is.
Greg is super willing. In fact, he's downright jovial about going into uncomfortable territory, where things are rubbing against each other. And oftentimes, it can feel like, where the hell is this going? And then it gets there and it's someplace unexpected. And that's the golden nugget about this type of improvisation to me.
Okay. Well, this leads to my next question actually, because you called golden nugget, and
Yeah.
I was supposed to ask about your secret sauce. So I think we're talking about mostly the same thing. But could you do you have a secret sauce for a nice and interesting performance?
Uh, yeah. I mean, again, because my philosophy is, you know, life is the dancer, I'm the dance.
Yeah.
So the way that I get my vibration, there's a lot of ways I can get my vibration like together. I can, of course, eat well, exercise, meditate,
Hmm.
clean up, organize stuff. That makes a huge difference. Feng shui is not a joke. You know,
Yeah.
the flow. Keeping the flow. Um, and I don't mean the floor. Um, but I would say that my secret sauce is gratitude. And
Okay.
um, let's see, I have it right here. This is my current gratitude journal. And
Oh.
because I am on lockdown, quarantine, Brooklyn, shit's fucked up. Um, I'm actually recording my gratitude between tasks, not just at the beginning and end of my day, because I'm really working to keep my vibe in a great place, in spite of the anxiety and fear that's so prevalent right now in these challenging times, you know?
Mhm.
So not only is gratitude um, a tool that one I can recalibrate myself with, um, expressing gratitude to other people is also a wonderful way to kind of continue bridging and keep calibrating the world around me. So sometimes I've heard it described as a gratitude deficit. Sometimes when like in the workplace, maybe a certain person has a leadership style where their workers just won't don't feel they don't have a buy-in because they don't feel appreciated because of a gratitude
Mhm.
gap, a gratitude deficit. And it might just be a matter of expressing that. So I try to keep that in mind. But I mean, I've been in some recovering stages with this, but every day I just write, so after we finish, I'll write that, I'm grateful to have this chance to share with you. And it was really grateful to see some people that I think are really amazing in their worlds stop in and write comments.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love the gratitude book, and wow, I'm astonished about that. It's very cool. I I feel the same way, and I have invented a word in Portuguese for gratitude, which is gratidão, which is it is a word for gratitude. But I mean, I over exaggerate it and I say gratidaço, what means
Oh,
like a big, 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 big gratitude. So I
gratidazo.
yeah.
I
So
like it. It kind of
yeah.
rolls off the tongue. That's nice.
So I
Hey,
totally
Darrell.
agree. I totally agree with you, and well, it's very inspiring to see you talking about this. Another thing that was very inspiring for me is that in a previous chat we had on Instagram, you told me that you have a group where you conduct an ensemble with all female musicians, and I would love to hear more about this.
Well, let me think. Trying to remember that chat. Um, I don't, I don't, I don't have a group with all female musicians. But I have worked in settings with all female musicians. I actually, there's the Alienda Fopa Memorial Orchestra in Guatemala. And it's, I believe, the only all-female orchestra in South America. I believe so. And what's really interesting is that the women who are in this orchestra come to Guatemala City for rehearsal, but they're from different parts of Guatemala, and they also teach in the barrios, young people. So they are doing this community activism through music that is very inspiring, and really just, so I got a chance to go and do a workshop with them. And I did conducted improvisation with them, based upon no theme or anything, just from the ether. And then I taught them maybe 4 or 5 basic conduction symbols. And then I gave multiple members of the orchestra the opportunity to come to the podium and conduct. And then after as many people as wanted to try it, we discussed it. You know, what was challenging, what surprised you? Was it music? You know, because a lot of people have that conversation in Russia. They love to have that conversation. You know, and that's cool. It's outside of their culture to a certain degree. You know, the freeness of improvisation. But and what I really loved was that the women from this orchestra immediately saw the connection in how they thanks. They immediately saw the connection in how conducted improvisation could help connect with their students in the barrios, because they were all of varying levels on their instruments. So if you have like 4 kids on violin that are different levels, it's really hard to play the same song. But if you're doing conducted improvisation and everyone feels confident enough to just express themselves freely, then they're playing the same song. And so it's actually like, it's very much part of the language of social justice to me in that way.
Perfect. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And also I usually call conducted improvisation as a social practice, which is I really think that it goes beyond music. It goes it is about human interaction, and with, you know, with all those metaphors and gestures, Butch Morris gestures, and all those great conductors and composers gestures, you can really go beyond music with those metaphors, because you can apply that in your daily life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you give young people or anybody agency, and each person has their own unique voice, and it's really valid. And the more that we can encourage that expression, you know, and that freedom of expression, you know, I love my experiences in Siberia. There's a part of me that feels like I've become Siberian. I love my life there so much, and I have family there now, you know, people that are close like family to me, and people that are challenging like family to me. But I was told by the director of the conservatory that some of the teachers didn't love what I did to their students. And I said, I don't understand. What do they like? And they said, they become too free. And so, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is, you know, but this is clearly a cultural, you know, the rub, just like a dissonance. It's a dissonance. And then this is just what happens. And it's a perspective thing, you know, and I don't take the posture that they're right or that they're wrong or that I'm right, that I'm wrong. It just is, you know, so I just say, okay, you know, and then I said to her when she told me that, I said, this actually makes me happy though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Power to the people.
Yeah.
That's right. And well, I love the way you remember those stories, and I would ask you if you can share one or two more stories that you keep in your heart about your experience, or something that you know you can remind in the spot, or you know, something that it really warms your heart about the subject, about the conducted improvisation, but you know, something that happened to you, or
Oh, wow. This isn't a warm my heart story, but it's a funny story to me.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm going into my 8th year of working in Siberia at the Krasnoyarsk Ivanov Redkevich Music College and creating, it's called a youth orchestra, but they're college kids. And I think like the only requirement for membership for my orchestra is an open heart.
Okay.
And so I end up getting very wild instrumentation. So especially in Siberia, one year I had 2 duduks. Do you know the duduk?
Yeah,
It's
right.
the army. I had 2 duduks. So I had a duduk section, right? I had a very enthusiastic, I've had several accordionists, balalaika, domra, and so basically vargan, you know, and so basically sort of the traditional folk instruments of the regions being put with traditional classical instruments, you know, or what have you, or in a jazz setting. So, and rhythmically, when I first started working with this orchestra, they didn't understand the concept of swing.
Okay.
So I actually had to write it into the music. In the through composed parts, I had to write the swing in. But eventually, over time, like, you know, they got the swing and they got the soloing. But that took you know, a couple years for some of the students, you know. One thing that was really funny was that it was my first concert at the Philharmonic in Siberia, and I heard that the Philharmonic director and some of her composer people asked for my scores to be brought to the Philharmonic without me knowing, because they wanted to evaluate the level of my music. But what's really funny is with my Siberian Russian students in my orchestra, some of them don't respond unless they have a piece of music. For some of them, I give them music and it's like 120 bars of nothing. And you know, but it's got the title on the top, and so, you know, and it's like somehow just that's enough. So I can't imagine what they thought when they saw some of my scores with some graphic notation. Some of it was through compose. You've heard
Yeah.
some of it. My concert wasn't canceled. It sold out at the Philharmonic. So I don't know if they just pretended to understand, because I don't know how they could have, but I do know that that happened. And that's very funny to me. But I think my favorite moment is when I do workshops with kids who aren't even really musicians. Maybe they're playing buckets or something with sticks, or I have them doing body percussion or using their voices.
Mhm.
And I show them 2 or 3 hand signals. They love that one. The one that's like a wave. If everyone's sitting like in a semicircle and you do this, you know, it's
like a panorama.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You know, when the baton is in front of you, you clap. And
Right.
then you know, so you know, I can do like so, oh, they love that. So it's so fun to see them get in front. It's like, okay, your turn, and they're just like, you know, and just to see them like, you know, because I love that Wayne Shorter quote, and I don't know if it originated with Wayne, but I know that I heard Wayne say it. Um, Improvisation is composition sped up, and composition is improvisation slowed down, you know?
Mhm.
And so to see these young people who've never considered themselves to be conductors or composers
Hmm.
spontaneously compose with 2 or 3, you know, hand signals, you know,
Mhm.
you can't see my hand, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm over here. I mean, that just warms my heart. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, "We all love that." Ha ha ha. We all that we do.
Yes, lovely stories. Thank you for sharing. Those are great stories. And something that you mentioned about, you writing some scores and working with Philharmonic and all. I mean, you as a composer, how do you see and where do you think it merges your scores and your conducted improvisation? Do you merge it or do you think they are separate things?
Oh, it gets merged. It gets
Oh,
merged. And sometimes it may not even sound like it's conducted improvisation. Maybe I am just having freedom. You know, I think I read or saw an interview where Butch was like, "Why can't I repeat the second movement of this symphony?" You know,
mhm,
and so if I'm not actually up under the hood tinkering with the individual pieces, um, the song form is going to be shifting it,
mhm,
and as I feel it in that moment, you know.
mhm,
And I love that about Butch. You know, Butch asked a lot of questions that he didn't get answers to. Hi, Kim Smith, I love you. Um, and so he
mhm.
created his own answers, you
Yeah,
know, and you know, he answered his own questions and then left this legacy, you know, and we get to stand on his shoulders, you
yeah.
know, and I'm so grateful for that.
That's for sure. I'm grateful for his words too. He was a great philosopher, more than conductor and musician and all this. I totally agree. And uh, and all those metaphors that he created, all those ideas like being the moment and don't have expectations, and I totally agree, and I found they very helpful for creating music on the spot. And something that I would like to know a bit more about you is about your creative process, because you were talking about music form and about well, Butch Morris, he has this statement, which was he was proposing the structure while the musicians proposed the content,
Mm.
and it when you say, I perceive that you have a similar perception of how you do your conducting, and I would like to know, how do you see, or maybe if you could share about your creative process or strategies that you use to compose or conduct in real time. I mean, what kind of brain movement do you have when you are searching for a music form? Does it make
Um,
sense?
yeah, it does. It's interesting. I don't really have a strategy.
Okay.
Doctors in the house. Um, I don't really have a strategy besides listening and being in the moment. And maybe this is something that I got from Greg Tate, but if I send a message and I sense there's some resistance, I might lean into that particular individual a little more. You
Hmm.
know, or if I'm feeling like there's something, I might try a little, dig a little deeper and try to get through to that. Yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great strategy for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't generally, unless on something that's got some form already to it, maybe I have an idea of where it can go, but I always leave it open so that it's again different. And I think that's what I love. Burnt Sugar really taught me that, Greg Tate and them, like once again, the band that's never played the same thing once. It's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I love regular music. I mean, not that this is irregular music, but I mean, I like playing songs that have the same form and the same high points and the same low points. There's a place that you go to with that too. But with this type of improvisation, uh, it's like exploring the depths of the deepest ocean.
Huh. I love the way you put things. Thank you so much for your thoughts. They are great.
Oh,
And
I appreciate you so
yeah,
much. Thank
I
you.
really appreciate. I would say that we could open for people who to drop some questions in the comments, and
Is
maybe while we wait for them to write, you could share anything you want.
Does anybody have any musical questions in the comments? It's a setup. I've been there. Um, I don't know if anybody does. But it is nice to see some people on here. I know. Um,
Well, I have a one more question for you, which
yes.
is you were I remember that early you said something about um, you don't need to you don't need to how do I don't I can't remember the way you put it, but the question is when you are recording an improvisation, I mean, do you think that the final project must be the faithful recording of what happened, or do you think that this recording itself, it can be modified, manipulated, and with overdubs, editing? How do you feel about that?
I think that there's a place for both schools. I think there's something to be said when you find out that a certain recording, when you find out that a certain recording just happened exactly like that. But there is it's not invalid. I mean, that's how, Bitches Brew was made like that. A lot of Herbie's stuff, he recorded, Mike Clark talks a lot about the Headhunters stuff. He would record grooves between Paul and Mike on bass and drums, and then take that and then later on write some piano over it, and like, are you going to say those recordings are not valid? Bitches Brew, nobody knew who was on the record or what was. Oh my God, I got a question that I love. Nobody knew who was on the record or what the song was or where the song was going. You know what I mean? That was basically organized chaos, and the end result is undeniable. So I think that there's just a place for both.
Mhm.
Um, I have a question here.
Okay, it's a great
How
answer.
How was my experience drumming in Livingston? Livingston is in Guatemala. It is an island off the coast of the main part of Guatemala where the Garifuna, the Afro-Guatemalans, live. And I had the opportunity to work with U.S. Embassy Guatemala and Jacobo, who was on here for a minute, and Malacates, and I forgot the name of their organization. Oh, forgive me. And we did, I learned some Garifuna rhythms, and we helped them get some more drums so that more young people could play drums in their drumming organization, which was just a wonderful way to kind of keep the tradition with the young people, and also empower more young women to start drumming, which I never had to say anything like women should play the drums, because I just played the drums, and then like there was like no questions, you know. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna play the drums too. Like suddenly the girls were like, give me that drum. So that was really cool, and I have to say that it's a golden experience that I got to go to Guatemala and Livingston especially so many times and reconnect with the same community. That's really golden. And I had this also a similar experience in Recife.
Oh, really?
I went to a school, a maracatu school for young people, and I got to jam with them and did some conducted improvisation with the drummers, and also play drums with them, you know. And yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
It was
that's
really amazing.
outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I hope you, after all of this is over, you can come back to Brazil and we can meet in person to play some music too. It
Holler
would
at your
be,
girl. I'll come.
yeah.
Yeah. Let me know.
I think that was it. I really appreciate. I would like to thank you so much for participating. I loved all your answers, all the way you put things. I'm very happy to, and very grateful for your, your. Maybe you have a last question here. Do you want to answer
Oh,
it?
can I talk about breath, gesture, and rhythm? Wow. It's interesting. It's interesting. I remember when I was like in my early, like late teens, early 20s, thanks, Todd. Um, I went up, I was trying to learn as much as I could about being a great jazz musician. And I I've I went to a jazz concert, and I used to ask like iconic jazz people when I met them, give me the one piece of advice. What is the one pearl that you think is the most important thing for me to walk away with? And um, what was really interesting was that a few great masters told me that breathing was the most important thing, and they weren't wind players. You know, these were pianists and drummers, and one bass player told me that. And I try to really breathe into motion. I don't know if that comes from my limited personal dance background, but great exposure to dance as a result of my mother, moving with motion. And then rhythm, you know, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, you know. So, but there's all types of swing, you know, and there's a whole lot of different grooves. So I think for me, what makes a groove and like really powerful for me, and what makes rhythm really powerful is intention, you know. And you can hear two people play the same rhythm, and the difference could be intention. You know, if you listen to hey Dave Rogers, if you listen to you know, a 14-year-old who might have only been playing an instrument for maybe 1 or 2 years, just go boom ga, you know, it might just be boom ga, Whereas you listen to someone who's got a lot of experience and intention behind each one of those beats, their boom ga is like, whoa, you know. But that's not to say that it's related to age, but it generally can be related to experience, you know, but not always. I mean, I've seen some kids that just freaking channel, you know. I'm just like, that's it.
Wow, that's great. So thank you a lot for sharing
Thank
all
you.
those great ideas. I
Yeah,
really,
thank
really
you.
appreciate